Revolution starts slow and often quietly. Eli Whitney, Nikolai Tesla, Eddie Van Halen. These once obscure geniuses slash futurists had humble beginnings, but their endings are still nowhere in sight. Revolutions begin in opposition to ideas and circumstances that the majority know are wrong. Nowadays, we find ourselves at a crossroads. Continue down the path of collapse, or choose a new way, an uncertain way, but a way that elicits hope and positivity. Save the world economy and save the planet? Who is against that? If loving that idea is wrong, then we don't want to be right. So sit down and introduce yourself to some revolutionary ideas that may just steer you towards the path of prosperity on this episode of $5 Buzz.
Step inside, lock the door behind you. Please ensure that the towel is properly positioned. You're stepping in on another $5 Buzz. My name is George Cursar. I'm here in Fairfield, Connecticut, and I would like to welcome back to the program Mr. Pete Liska. We missed you last night. This is a playoff week for us. We've got 4 recordings, and wasn't the same without you for game 1. How are you?
I'm great, man. Thanks. Glad to be back. 6-week-old in my arms about 10 minutes ago has got me a little busy, but very happy to get these in when we can.
Absolutely, man. So it's great to have you back. And Roger, how are things with you tonight?
Yeah, it's good. It was a busy day for me working on this damn Mercedes-Benz commercial, but we get it rocking and rolling.
Excellent. And we would like to welcome our guest who is the first Canadian guest that we've ever had and only our second international guest. So his name is Colin Sullivan, and he is the CEO of Mintgreen. We really appreciate your time, Colin. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. It's been crazy for us the last few weeks, but no, I can't complain. That's for sure.
Excellent. And you are in Vancouver. Can you give us
like Vancouver?
Vancouver is a great town. I was only there one time with Pete, actually, and
Nice.
It was advertised to us as the Amsterdam of the West. So
Back in that was 99, right, George?
Yeah, that was 1999, and but Pete, you've actually been back there.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Vancouver is amazing. Whistler. I mean, there's nothing better than that. The drive from Vancouver to Whistler, I think, is an otherworldly experience. It's so beautiful. I mean, I'm sure you're quite familiar with that.
Oh yeah, it's a great drive. Yeah.
I mean, just that train on the side of the mountain looks like it's just hanging off the side of a mountain. You see in the water on your left. It's unbelievable.
There's some things you take for granted living here, but that ride is really gorgeous. I mean, no matter what the season is.
Yeah. It was absolutely spectacular. Rivals anything you'd ever see.
And Colin, before we get into talking about your clean tech startup, which we'll get into, and you'll educate us and the audience about it. It's a really intriguing story. Can you just give us Americans a little bit what contemporary life is like in Canada right now? I know like the borders have been sealed off pretty tightly for the last, I think, year and a half. The US and Canada have always had a really tight relationship. And unfortunately, it seems like the rest of the world since the pandemic has kind of gone a little bit isolationist and protectionist, and have things loosened up with the business relationship between the two nations? What are you seeing, and what is life like, after the pandemic in Canada? Because obviously everything we get is all focused on the United States.
You got to understand though that like in my business, it's somewhat insular, right? Like we have 2 clients that would be like a heat off taker locally, and then the Bitcoin protocol will be the other one, and the latter never complains. So it's tough for me to say exactly how trans-border trade and stuff is going. I would say that there's still a fair bit of hysteria in Vancouver and in the country of Canada in general. So it's I don't want to turn it into like a COVID podcast, but
Sure.
at the same time, I think the situation and the timing of everything is somewhat similar. And I don't know, I feel like it's kind of time for Canada to move on. But yeah, there's still a fair bit of restrictions going on.
Right. Yeah. It seems like things are getting better, but we're not quite out of the woods yet. So, but I agree. I'm so sick and tired of talking about it, and I think everyone needs to move on. But anyway, before we really get into your day job and your focus of your career right now, can you tell? I think I was looking at your LinkedIn, and I noticed that you were a game developer. Is that right? Were you involved in the software side of gaming?
Yeah. In, I don't know, maybe it was like 2008, 2007, something like that. I started an apps-based company, produced a couple games on iOS. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I'd love to make one in the future again. The gaming industry is a bit different. I mean, you can have a high quality product, but marketing is so powerful. And I didn't really understand that at the time. So it's one of these things where every dollar you spend, as long as you're getting $1.01 back, you should just keep spending more marketing. But I do really like that. I still sometimes write games when like sort of an idea comes to me. Definitely a passion of mine for sure.
Excellent. Now, I heard some of the podcast interviews that you did with Whit Gibbs on Compass, and I was really intrigued. It's a really engaging conversation. If any of our listeners out there want to learn about cryptocurrency or just alternative asset class, it's really interesting. I don't really know that much about it, and I was able to follow along. But Colin, before we kind of get into Mintgreen and the work that you're doing, based on the conversations that you were having with Whit, I liked what I heard when you were trying to define what cryptocurrency was for people that have no background in it. And it's a decentralized currency, but I liked what you and Whit were discussing about how it gives freedom away from a government issued currency. And you guys were talking about how there was a cost associated with, for example, the United States dollar. It's not simply just printing money. There's a government apparatus around it. There's banking around it. There are the military lobbyists. There are individuals and structures that want to maintain the power of the United States dollar. Obviously, an example would be Gaddafi no longer being with us on the planet because he wanted to trade in Africa on the gold dinar. I know I'm talking a lot, but could you just give us, the listeners, if you could just reiterate what you Whit were talking about?
First of all, it's really cool that you saw the Compass podcast with heard the Compass podcast with Whit and I. That was a lot of fun doing that one. I mean, it's there's a single metric for the consumption of energy for Bitcoin. It becomes a very easy target, very low hanging fruit. When you're discussing what makes up the value of a fiat currency, the answer is everything the country does everywhere. And that's largely backed. It's essentially a petrodollar. So like to put a price tag on political, military, the sort of industrial output of a country and say, well, okay, well, what is the consumption of that? I mean, that's literally everything. You couldn't start printing US dollars in your basement because you don't have the credibility to do that. How is that built, right? And so that takes a massive beast to do that. When they talk about, actually, it's so funny, they like to compare like, oh, well, Bitcoin's consuming the same amount of energy as, and like, it's funny, like our company kind of solves this problem, but I do have to kind of explain this as well. Mm-hmm. They'll be like, say, it consumes as much energy as some sort of, smaller country in the world. But what they never sort of underscore is the value of Bitcoin is greater than most currencies, but like maybe 7 in the entire world. So the energy is getting definitely more value than a lot of these countries are. So when you're talking to sort of like a borderless peer-to-peer network, never sort of been seen before, it has no army, it has electrons, right? So it's sort of it's a peaceful divergence from a system that is in some ways, if and some would argue most ways, held together by a lot of violence. Bitcoin is just electrons.
Right. And I like that is kind of appealing because, you know, when money like the US dollar, when fiat currency is printed, there's certain individuals who make the decision for the large majority of the world. And
God, yeah.
it feels like who's going to benefit from this next $1 trillion being printed. It's going to be Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, Exxon, Rio Tinto. And the list goes on, and the money seems to funnel back to the same people. The problems exist, and it seems like cryptocurrency can kind of maybe spread the wealth out to.
But don't you need dollars to buy them? I don't. That's where I'm a little bit confused about cryptocurrency. Don't you need money to get cryptocurrency?
Not if you already had cryptocurrency.
Not if you already had it.
Right. It's like how do you get dollars? You work. Well,
Mhm.
you know, you work for Bitcoin in the future. This is how it is, right?
You maybe in the future you can see where people are getting paid in Bitcoin instead of dollars.
I'm getting paid in Bitcoin. At least
You're getting paid in.
yeah. I mean,
Wow.
my whole team here, like we have options in our employment agreement to take as much Bitcoin as the company agrees to at any given time, and people love it. I mean, it leaves you in a situation where you just take the money that you need to sort of get by, and then you end up with like an asset that's doing excellent.
Yeah.
And your savings are going up rather than down. Precisely what George said here. You know, when you trust a central authority to issue currency, that's not in the least bit fair. The rules of Bitcoin are fixed. Everyone knows how much there's going to be. Everyone is participating, and the inflation rate is known and decreasing over time. If you don't have enough money, that is your problem. You don't just get to create it out of thin air. I think the moral hazard that creates not only for countries, but companies, large companies that are sort of intertwined with these states, suddenly have no risk. It's just everyone gets a bailout. It's like the Oprah meme. You get a bailout, and you get a bailout, and you get a bailout. It's like they're creating what's called malinvestment, which is essentially money is going to not very strong companies that don't make a lot of business sense because of their systemic risk to the system. That's not how capitalism is supposed to work. That's not what a central bank is supposed to function as. The wheels all sort of started falling off around, I'd say, like the 2008 housing crisis, but accelerated so rapidly during the pandemic. You know, like there's no stopping Bitcoin, but sound monetary policy would slow it down. I think this has been handled in such a way that's put Bitcoin ahead probably 20 years. I thought 10, but I think 20 now.
That's incredible. I mean, you know, you think about a big conversation going on amongst folk is the rate of inflation is looming or on its way. The dollar is essentially, you know, the value of the dollar is going down. That's the future. That's what people are saying. Is Bitcoin impermeable to that because it's not attached to the government? Essentially.
So with the dollar going down, you know, you're saying like inflation, et cetera. Like what you'll find is they call it Cantillon effects. So the new money is directly injected into the stock market essentially right out the gate. And so you see real inflation in the stock market immediately. I mean, like the economy is not great. The stock market is through the roof. How do you explain that? Well, there's money being put right into it, but that starts moving down the entire economy to houses, particularly, I would say in British Columbia. I don't know what it's like where you are. I'm paying twice the amount for gas I was a year ago. Meats, on and on. It goes throughout, it percolates for the economy until it's fully felt. And if that doesn't stop, what you start to have sort of a crisis of faith in the dollar, and that sort of manifests itself in hyperinflation. Is Bitcoin immune to that? Yes, Bitcoin is immune to that. There's no way to issue more Bitcoin. There just is no way. Every 10 minutes, 6.25 I believe 6.25 Bitcoin are created in each block that incentivizes miners who protect the network. So there is an algorithmic guessing game. It's extremely complicated to guess. And they basically, Satoshi created a system where if all these computers guess at the same time, at about 10 minutes, give or take, one will get the right answer and all the coins will be distributed from there, including what's called a block reward, which is how the currency grows, but also how miners are compensated. So miners are compensated for their effort in securing the network.
And the miners, now you had mentioned there's kind of this low-hanging fruit argument of it being bad for the environment.
Mm-hmm.
What is mining Bitcoin for? Because I really don't know anything about it.
There's so many levels of what is mining. I would say for your guys' level, it's like brute force security to the protocol. So there's no tricky way to get at Bitcoin. There's no way to hack it. You have to overpower the network, and that's just literally impossible at this stage. So essentially, again, the protocol, I mean, if you want to get into, should I get into the detail of it? Do you guys care?
I guess more generally speaking, I mean, I understand it's complicated.
Was that good enough? I can go.
That's good enough. That's good enough.
Colin, I know it's you. I remember you said on one of the discussions with Whit that it took you about, I think you said about 4 years to kind of get a understanding. And you're someone with a master's degree and obviously undergrad degree, and someone who actually spends a lot of time thinking about this. So for us to kind of get to bottom of this in a few minutes is probably not possible. But what I would like is for you to just give us, I read an article about what your company Mintgreen is doing. Can you tell us about how you, I believe that you were involved in some type of VC competition. Is that the right way to say it? And your company was able to secure some funding and that took you to the next level. Could you shade the background on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, just so everyone knows, Mintgreen is a clean tech cryptocurrency mining company. We have a focus on immersion mining where we submerge the boards in a fluid. This basically allows us to capture the heat in this fluid. We pump the fluid to a heat exchanger and use it for industrial commercial purposes. I mean, most recently we announced a partnership with North Vancouver, which is ongoing. We've had a lot of amazing inbound since then. So to your question, can you just rephrase that for me one more time?
Yeah. Can you just talk about you decided, I think you had a background where you were working in some type of heat engineering. And then at some point you pivoted and said, I have a vision, and you were able to secure some funding. Can you take us through from?
So the story of Mintgreen starts in mostly 2016, 2017. We were taking GPU rigs, which is just basically a super gaming computer with a bunch of graphics processors, and putting them in this place called Hemlock Mountain outside of Vancouver. It's a remote ski hill. They have no natural gas, so everyone's heating with electricity. It's super expensive. So we started putting these into these buildings and agreeing, hey, can we split the power costs with you guys? And they were open to it. So essentially we had sort of found a way to in a decentralized way, lower our power costs without protracted negotiations. Fast forward, I mean, basically we were working with Lonsdale Energy for about 2.5 years. They had some certain heat thresholds we had to make, and we really built a business case to work with them. But we entered a contest called Nextstream, which was an open startup competition. And this open startup competition had about 60 or 70 startups, nothing to do with Bitcoin or crypto. We were one of the very few entries that were. And we actually won in the category of sustainability, which was massively validating for us. And you got to understand, these are people who would say, well, how is this a solution? Why doesn't Bitcoin just stop? And then we don't need to produce this energy at all or use this energy at all, which is, to me, an unfathomable statement. but probably more common than I would like to admit. I mean, there's been no technology, I think, in the history of time, I could be wrong, but that's been more sensationalized than what's going on with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So, having that argument and that discussion about how, basically in El Salvador, it's now a parallel legal tender to the US dollar, Bitcoin. And now suddenly 4 million El Salvadorians who've never had a bank account at all now are able to transfer money anywhere. The remittances, apparently there was this report written that Wells Fargo is going to lose $100 million in remittances. I mean, that means the El Salvadorians gain $100 million.
Yeah, and why should we give a fuck what happens to Wells Fargo?
Honestly, exactly. I mean, it's a dinosaur. I mean,
and if Wells Fargo disappears in the next 10 minutes, will we even feel it? Maybe there'll be some ripples in the stock market or here and there.
If Wells Fargo is worried, they should buy Bitcoin.
Right.
Yeah, a friend of mine owned a Brazilian store. He was from Brazil, down on where I used to live in San Francisco, and the store sold knickknacks and stuff, but it was really, wouldn't call it a front. I mean, it was legitimate business. His business was making sure people got money from America to Brazil, because if you mailed it or sent it through a bank or any of these other ways, that money was going to get stolen.
Yeah.
This would be another way to circumvent something along those lines, as well as being able to transfer money or Bitcoins that you have, or cryptocurrency that you've generated here, and be able to give to your family some part of the world that you may not be able to get it to them otherwise. I mean, that's essentially what you were saying.
Completely. And I mean, these are not wealthy people. These are people generally spending, they send $100. They want the other end to get $100. They don't want them to get $60 or 80 or whatever it is. But it's inordinately high given what, the fact is 2021 now. And I think it's quite predatory the way they have it set up. So I think it's great that the guys from Strike went down there. Jack Mallers was a huge proponent of this, and is actually the CEO of the company. It was incredible when he announced it in Miami last year, or was it? No, it was this year actually. Wow, time flies. Time doesn't fly. But it was amazing to hear that we finally had the first country in the world that saw this as legal tender. So I mean, when people are talking about, if we get into a price discussion later, it's not the same as it used to be. It's not like, whales may dump at cyclical points like a bank may buy, a country may buy. It's so different now.
So essentially you are running a company that is doing two very distinct things. You're mining for cryptocurrency. And I apologize if I'm not being specific because I don't know, you're mining, but also you're repurposing the byproduct of that. And that's pretty incredible, man. That's pretty visionary. And can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing with the whiskey company? And also, that'd be a fun thing to talk about. How did those conversations start up? And I can't wait to try some of that whiskey. It's on my radar now.
Firstly, thank you. No, it's, in our space, most mining companies just want scale. It's not as simple for us to do 100 megawatts with full offtake, right? Even the city of North Van, it's maybe going to start out at 1.5 megawatts to do the base load for the entire city. Now, this is going to decarbonize their entire network by 40%. But I mean, we have to do numerous cities if we want to get to that scale, numerous applications. So when you're talking about the whiskey stuff, that was cool. There's a neighboring company on their property called Vancouver Island Salt Company, which we ultimately, I don't think we'll be able to do business with. But the fact is they do evaporative process to make salt flakes. They're actually quite good. And I was just eating some on a chicken, and I literally called them and said, hey, what's your process like? Are you adding heat to it? And then would you like to chat? Well, he takes me there, and then he takes me on to his neighbor, who's Vancouver Island, was Shelter Point Distillery. So it's like a Scotch style whiskey place. They need heat for their mash process. They were saying that if we do if they add heat to the barrel aging process, they can age them quicker and then get a higher value for them. So the commercial side of it is ongoing. We're building this thing. I think we can get a deal going, but because we have a mutual investor between the two companies, it's probably going to make it work. But I've been running around like, I don't even know it. My hair's on fire trying to get this round done and this other deal done. So I think I'm highly optimistic that Bitcoin whiskey is going to happen. We're planning it for the next halving, which is 2024. So I think that could be a lot of fun. And I can say from experience, it's very nice whiskey.
Wow, that's very interesting stuff, man. And you're talking about dealing with the municipality. Can you, if you can you talk about, did they approach you? Is this a kind of an inflection point where the powers that be, meaning like the municipal government, kind of said, hey, there's got to be a better way of doing things? And if you can, if you're able to, what was that like? Must have been validating, right?
I think once this is running, you'll start to see that type of thing happen. It's a delicate dance that allowed this project to exist because it's not directly the city. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of the city that's technically a private company. And so they have a P&L and a whole bit. And so essentially they're held to profitability margins, et cetera. And we were the answer to a massive problem that they had. Now, the huge press that came out kind of made some of the city councilors nervous, as I heard. But I don't think there's a credible argument against what's happening here. I mean, bottom line is they can't afford to be using electrical power for this without subsidy. We are the subsidy to that for the green electric power. I should also mention in BC, it's 97.5% hydroelectric. So, our energy, it's green energy coming in. We get to use it to mine Bitcoin. We recover upwards of 96%. We're hoping to even get higher than that in practice, and send it to basically heat homes, dishwashers, the whole bit. For about 100 buildings. This is not like 100 houses. This is like high rises. These are low rises, commercial buildings, that kind of thing. It's about 7,000 apartment suites. It's significant. In the hottest days of the year, all the heat will be coming from Mintgreen.
And
Wow.
Pete, I know you had some thoughts about how this practice could be used in maybe somewhere like El Salvador, right?
Absolutely. The possibilities seem to be endless. You could heat, any area. That's one of the most amazing things, especially in Canada, where it can obviously get so cold.
Yeah,
being able to provide heat like that is an incredible thing, especially in places that need it.
I appreciate that, Pete. I mean, we say we're hacking the economics of clean heating, and that's really what it amounts to. My sort of like this can decarbonize a lot of heating systems for the baseload portion, which is the largest portion typically. But I mean, what else? Like, what's the next application? Maybe you're looking at wastewater treatment. I really think there is an application for desalinization. I think the world doesn't have a water shortage. 70% of the planet's covered in water. I think we have an energy issue, and we unlock thermal energy with what we're doing. You could be irrigating, deserts. You could be making crops out of this. So there's a massive amount of applications when suddenly heat is not by some sort of government subsidy, but by like commercial innovation, is now suddenly more readily available to an end user, a country, a city. How that sort of just shifts everything.
Have you guys?
Yeah, go ahead, George. Go.
I was going to say, have you guys met any sort of resistance from like the old world type thinking? I know a big story that you probably heard about was, I think it was last winter, the city of Houston's power grid, I believe, went down, and that's not a state that's accustomed to cold weather, and they kind of got overwhelmed. Would that be an opportunity for Mint Green? And if so, is there money and institutions out there that really don't want to see you guys succeed, or are you kind of getting a welcome mat?
The only sort of feeling I get about maybe people or entities that don't want us to succeed is more like, it's more just like a lack of understanding, or rather probably a miseducation. I mean, you can't learn anything from mainstream media about Bitcoin or blockchain. You just can't. When I did do my MBA from UBC, they were laughing about Bitcoin. They were laughing about all this stuff, and then it was like, and a year goes by. Oh well, it's blockchain, not Bitcoin, etc. They just do not get it. So I feel like over time, the facts will sort of take care of these types of concerns. There's no sort of discussion I'm afraid to have. There's no topic on this I can't speak to and articulate in a way that would make them understand exactly what's going on. That being said, you had one more point you were making. I just want to make sure I answer this question.
I think I was kind of getting to the kind of crisis they had in the city of Houston, Texas, where the grid went down. Would that be an opportunity for your process to kind of step in and alleviate some of the burden?
That's fairly astute. It's not really an opportunity for Mint Green, but it is an opportunity for Bitcoin mining. So I heard, and I don't want to get again too political, but like,
sure,
I heard Ted Cruz do a talk, and my jaw was dropping. I mean, the guy basically said he understood that you're getting energy infrastructure that can be used for everyone from companies. So basically, there's a lot of flare gas in Permian, West Texas, etc. There's companies like Crusoe who capture, another green mining company. They're basically capturing what would otherwise be just burnt into the atmosphere. They take a generator, they burn the flare gas to create electricity to mine. And he was essentially like, if this happened again, we would have hundreds of these miners throughout our grid. Suddenly, if the grid goes down in terms of like getting energy to people, they can stop mining and start selling their power to the grid and start supplying it to people who need it, hospitals, etc. And it just adds that kind of energy robustness. I recently tweeted, and I believe this, that Bitcoin mining will do to the electrical grid utilities what like streaming services have done to the internet.
Wow, that's pretty significant. And I know you are in Canada, but the U.S. Monetary policy really affects the whole world. Is there any? I know that they're injecting, I think, another $1 trillion into the economy. Is any of it, do you know, of being used to maybe problem solve what was happening in Houston, or is it just going to be more of the same type of allocations that have been going on?
I'm not an expert in the bill. That's probably
no one is, right?
60,000 pages. I'm probably understating how many there are. It's probably
right.
But it's definitely thick. I would say that probably not. It's going to be up to individual entrepreneurs and companies to provide that kind of stuff. And I think it's already happening. Texas has been amazingly welcoming to Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners. And I think that's extremely progressive thinking and very, very shrewd of them. I mean, if you're open to business for Bitcoin, I mean, there's nothing that can be better for your economy. I mean, you're instantly welcoming, I mean, a lot of capital, first of all, but like the most lively industry in the world right now.
Yeah.
Raj, quick question, because I've been hearing about people that get paid highly, like actors and such, getting paid in Bitcoin now. I mean, that's not like, didn't Floyd Mayweather get a huge portion of one of his payouts in Bitcoin? Did anyone, or am I?
And Tom Brady gave that guy who gave him back the football of Bitcoin. We gave him a full. We paid him off, for the 600th touchdown of his career, or whatever. Gave the guy Bitcoin. I know that there are some performers out there who are now accepting half of their payment in Bitcoin. And here in Los Angeles, I was just on a set not too long ago on a commercial set, and the producers and one of the other or somebody else on the crew, they were all telling me, Rod, you got to buy into this stuff. You got to buy into this. You got to get some. Yeah. So even my own roommates during the pandemic, everybody's got, jumped on one of the apps, and everybody at one point or another, including myself, had held on and bought some. And I think you did too, Pete, have a little cryptocurrency in our back pocket. So it's not, it's something that everybody, if they don't know what it is completely, at least everybody's thinking they could make some money off it.
But Colin, I gotta say, Colin, like,
I don't know if it's for the altruistic reasons that Colin's supplying us with. Yeah, I think some of these people are just looking at, to make a quick buck, as well as some are actually doing it for the right.
But it does sound like there's a bit of a level of the playing field or the potential for that to happen, because the system as it is fucked. So, it seems to me what you guys are doing up in Canada couldn't even happen. It couldn't even happen in America at this point, but hopefully maybe it does,
So like, I mean, Bitcoin is not even. I mean, certain people got in extremely early, etc. But it's fair. I mean, the rules have been fixed. They haven't been changed.
And there's no bank, right? You're not dealing with a bank.
There is no bank. Yeah, you are quite literally a bank. With that comes responsibility that is not sort of native anymore to people. But it doesn't take too much to get there. I mean, you have to make sure you have sort of good custodial hygiene of your coins, which includes like your private keys. You'll probably want an air gap cold storage device. Just sort of scale your security according to how much you own, just like a bank would. Yeah, I mean, like the lack of friction. I mean, it basically just completes the promise of the internet, right? Like we had information going everywhere all of a sudden. Now the same can be done with money. There's no reason for money not to function that way. The only reason why it wouldn't is because rent seekers don't like that. But the fact is, I mean, they're just bottlenecking what is otherwise far, far more efficient.
But how are people going to do cocaine, Colin?
I mean, maybe you need to start another business,
Hey guys, I think that might be a good
opportunities abound.
I think it might be a good spot for us to just take a 2-minute break, and we'll bring it back and maybe do like another 20 minutes or so, Colin, if you got the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, we have a quick favor to ask. We want to get the word out, and the way to help is for you to subscribe to us on either Apple or Spotify. And it would be really huge if you give us a rating and a review. Much love. Well, welcome back there, ladies and gentlemen, to this latest edition of $5 Buzz. We're happy to have Colin Sullivan here with us from Mintgreen, and we're talking all things cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in particular. So, Colin, I got a question for you. If the world actually transforms entirely to Bitcoin?
You mean when?
Or when the world actually transforms itself into utilizing that as a form of currency, how do we deal with, I mean, I've joked about cocaine. How does black market trading end up becoming, how does that, what are the implications for the black market? Is that the end of it?
Well, I think presently, so Bitcoin has a fully transparent ledger that anyone can look at. I was talking to my accountant recently, like, how can we prove these transactions happen? I'm like, they're in memoriam in the blockchain, so right. we can take a look at any time. So probably the best way is still cash, I would say, for those types of transactions. So are you saying you're concerned there won't be enough black market transactions, or? Well,
for instance, I guess, I mean, I'm answering my own question, but, if I pay the person that comes over to clean the house, All right. Usually that's a cash transaction, but that would be a Bitcoin transaction. Obviously, you just transfer Bitcoin to that person. I guess thievery would go down in a grand scale, particularly it, what and what there was just recently something I read. It was very, very on the surface. It was superficial, just a headline about somebody in some cryptocurrency that had screwed over a good deal amount of people. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about? Something recently that just happened?
If you be more specific, that might.
Yeah. It was something I just saw. But to that end,
Hmm.
Bitcoin in specific, I guess explain to me the safety net.
Mhm.
And then I also want to know beyond the safety net, the tax implications.
Those are extremely broad and deep questions. The safety net is really not the same. I mean, like you have to be responsible for what you have. That is what people aren't usually used to.
As you were saying
There's
before.
plenty of also custodial, third parties you can use. I wouldn't recommend that for anyone, but like sort of a very large whale or, an institution. As far as you were kind of asking about
Taxes.
tax, well, I mean, it's
You just pay your taxes through Bitcoin.
it kind of, yeah, right. Like, I mean, so for my company, there's a certain amount I'm supposed to get paid in salary, and there's a certain amount the government takes. Of the amount I get, that's where I decide how much Bitcoin I want, and we remit the rest in cash to them because they won't accept Bitcoin. But if they did accept Bitcoin, it would be the same thing.
But they tax Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is taxed, but it's essentially like there's capital gains on trades, etc. I mean, if it's in a business, it's a bit different. Owning it is and not doing anything with it is totally tax free for now until Janet Yellen gets her like unrealized gains tax in there, which is diabolical as it is brilliant.
But if I paid you in Bitcoin,
Yeah.
and I had to, give you a W-9 or W-4, W-9, and goes to the government, that would be considered, you would have to put a cash value on that Bitcoin I paid you, and you'd have to pay the taxes on that.
I think essentially, yeah, because that would be my income, right?
Right.
So at the time of payment, that would be my income. Whatever my income is, I would pay a dollar value of tax on that. I would not pay anything else until if I decided to sell it, and if there was a gain, I'd have to also pay a capital gain on that.
And is it the present?
But like your question, if the whole world is on Bitcoin, I got a little secret for you guys. The state in its present form cannot exist without its control of currency, without its ability to issue currency. So your taxes, although, I mean, you'll still need some, they're not going to be as high, that's for sure. The world's going to look a lot different. And
what if I paid you in the Bitcoin? How do you value that in the taxes that you would owe? The percentage, say it was a flat tax. Just say it was 10%.
Yeah, well, I mean, like we would capture the tax. Like to say, if we're in a market, Bitcoin has reached market equilibrium, it's basically cash. So like in El Salvador, it is cash. So there's no worry about capital gains. There's no worry about when you sell it or use it, because it's just money. Do you pay capital gains if the US dollar goes up 2 cents against the Canadian dollar? No. So that makes a lot more sense when using it as a currency. And that's the direction it's ultimately going to happen. But it can be very easily just tracked as, it is a store of value. It'll be, it's denominated in Bitcoin now, but in dollars now. It'll be known as just like, X Satoshis, and maybe there'll be taxes associated with the amount of value given on certain transactions.
But there's an interesting layer there. This is all your own password protected stuff, your own, right? I mean, you can't, no outside entity could actually access your Bitcoin information, right?
Correct.
The IRS has no way to do that, or infrastructure to do that.
Yeah.
And how could, I don't even know they'd be able to get it together to get that done.
It's described as sort of pseudo-anonymous, and that's pretty accurate. So like the hexadecimal associated with your wallet address, if you put it in a computer and looked it up, you could find out what's in there. But how do you know to look that up, right? So there would have to be some way of knowing that that's in existence to begin with. So, if you go on exchange and purchase Bitcoin KYC, and then it goes like from the exchange to your wallet, they'd know it's there. If you mine it, it's a lot more discreet, I would say. And if you bought it from someone like sort of over the counter, OTC, right? Hey, I'm gonna give you $100. Give me a slice of Bitcoin. I'll throw it on my, Trezor or Ledger or what have you. Those are cold storage wallets I'm naming, by the way.
But I mean, it's just fascinating. I mean, it's going to eliminate, in theory, it would eliminate the whole need to go to the Cayman Islands, for example, or tax shelter places when
Thinking the same thing.
they should, like, what are they going to do? Get a judge to order you to log into your account? I mean,
I'm not going to sit here and say people should, engage in illegal tax evasion, but it gives you certain rights over your funds you wouldn't normally have, right? So your accounts,
which maybe you should have.
Your accounts cannot be frozen, right? Like they can't just fuck with you because they want to, right? So I was just talking about this guy. Oh my God. He's the guy from Silk Road.
Yep. I know who you're talking about.
This is I think it's later for you guys, but Silk Road guy. I just want to get his name right here because it's Ross Ulbricht. So he was basically running a Craigslist that you could sell anything in Bitcoin. And eventually became like he and some other people became sort of the fall guy for it. They threw the book at him, but they see something like 23,000 Bitcoin from the exchange or from sort of, his computer, but apparently he has 600,000 more that they want, and they just can't get it. There's just no way.
But he can,
if
he's ever free. But he can.
Yeah.
That's absolute, and that's also that answers the black market question, because as I understood, Silk Road was just a black marketplace essentially, right?
There's a little before my time in this space, but yeah, anything goes kind of marketplace. Yeah.
Colin, it's interesting when you talk about El Salvador in the grand scheme of the world economy, a very minor player. What happens to, or what is the central bankers in Brussels or the United States start thinking when someone like, hey, Norway or Sweden, who, transact in their own currency that's pretty much independent? What if Norway says, you know what, guys, we're going to move to the El Salvador model? Now, Norway, who is a significant player in the world economy with oil and shipping and what have you, fishing and other type of exports, if that, for lack of a better term, contagion starts taking hold, what does that mean for the USD, right? The world's default trade economy. Is that where you get to the hyperinflation situation? And are there other? I know there's other countries that are considering this, but when a significant player like a Norway, for example, decides to go the El Salvador route.
Yeah, I do very much think this is very much a bottom-up revolution. Mm-hmm. Countries with reasonably stable, reasonably good currencies have the least use for a better currency, right? Because theirs is doing the job. If you're in a situation where you're in a hyperinflated environment, where you're losing 30% a month on your dollar, say Syria, El Salvador dollarized, meaning basically their local currency hyperinflated and disappeared. They grabbed onto the US dollar as a alternative, and then basically we're sort of nationless as far as their currency went, and said, well, why not this one? Let's try something a little bit different than what everyone else is doing, particularly when all the centralized controls in the US, and they can just devalue the currency at whim, and they basically have debts that are just, they can't control their own fortunes in that regard. So I think it's good. They were one of 195. You're seeing two different things going on. Like, you're going to see countries adopt that is sort of a domino effect. I believe the last country to adopt this loses, essentially. But you see other countries like Bulgaria, which actually has a massive Bitcoin supply and treasury, even though it's not legal tender. So they're really taking care of the wealth of their nation in a way that's valuable. So, I like I said, I think this has been moved forward 20 years. I think the next 4 years or even 24 months are going to be very interesting as far as where the chips fall from all of this.
Wow. And one other question that I was thinking about that I thought was kind of meaningful to your particular company because of, what you're doing with the byproduct with the heat. I know there's been some criticism by like environmentalists, but when I hear what you're doing, aren't you taking some of these practices that are disrupting the earth, like mining the earth, dynamiting mountains and carbon and fracking, things like that? Aren't you a safe and healthy alternative to that type of activity that, let's be honest, like Blackstone, I heard the other day, they're an ESG company. Like, how is Blackstone an ESG company when they own mining companies? They own shares in weapon manufacturing and pharmaceutical drugs that, get people addicted to them. I sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but how would you defend yourself from someone that's saying, hey, what you're doing is not good for the environment? When I mean, just to hear the little bit I know about your company, I would think quite the opposite.
Yeah. So it's a fairly indefensible position, obviously, in my opinion, a little biased.
Sure.
But we're using the energy twice, obviously, right? So first of all, we are mining Bitcoin. Bitcoin, I believe, per megawatt, we analyzed was somewhere between 900 tons to 1,100 tons of carbon dioxide per megawatt. So first of all, we're greening the Bitcoin network by that much. So the most expensive mining is typically thermal coal. We're outcompeting those guys in a competitive market. Great. And incrementally greening the entire network. Compared to natural gas, which is the most commonly used type of district heating, we are preventing 1,600 tons per year per megawatt of CO2 from entering the atmosphere. So there's a compounding effect there. You could almost argue we're less than zero in terms of our footprint here, because that energy is going to be used whether we mine or not. They're going to be burning natural gas, or they're going to be using some sort of other energy source to heat, and we are just supplanting that with something that already is serving utility that's already going to happen anyways. Which is basically greening two separate industries simultaneously.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And then, guys, I'll let you, I know we're getting close to, we want to be mindful of your time, Colin, but just like Mintgreen, is there any, and forgive me if this is a dumb question, but would a company like yours go public on the exchange? I mean, it seems counterintuitive. I mean, if you're operating in the world away from decentralized currency, is there an aspiration, or do similar companies have aspirations to go public on the exchange and raise money and, be beholden to shareholders? Or is that just not what you guys are due by the mandate of your existence? I'm sorry if that doesn't sound too articulate.
No, I understand what you're saying. So I can't speak for all crypto companies or Bitcoin companies. I can say that many are going public is fairly common. We have a great partnership with our lead investor from the last round, and also lead investor this round, which is CoinShares, a massive VC in the crypto space, something in the realm of 4 or 5 billion AUM. they would probably traditionally say, hey, we want you to go public in X amount of years. Me as the CEO of this company, I do not believe in an exit culture. I believe in creating value. I believe in developing a product, making a business that can stand up on its own 2 feet, is not looking to get acquired specifically for any reason. So if we keep building the business, I think the bankers will decide what price we do go public. If the world is in a different place by that time, maybe it makes sense. It's called Mintgreen. Maybe it is just a mint. Maybe it is just basically providing, dividends in perpetuity to all of its shareholders once we reach a certain size. We want to hit low double digits of the Bitcoin network. And so maybe that's the future model. I mean, you're talking about, it's tough to model because I feel like we're in such a transitionary period. So if you're in an inflationary environment, everyone's on a treadmill, right? If you're not moving forward quickly, you're moving backward. But if everything's backed with Bitcoin, it would almost be turned into sort of a savers environment. The speed of commerce would be a bit slower. This is like, Bitcoiners are very nostalgic about classical eras because it was a slower time. You built a castle. You built for like 100 years because that's just what you did. Now you're dealing with, the type of capital returns you need in a very short time. Things are very temporary and disposable. So it might be somewhat a return to that in that sense. Then maybe, not going public is the move. At any rate, doesn't really affect my strategy one way or the other. We're going to grow this company. We're going to keep building the technology. We're going to, keep building up our IP and change the world.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I guess I was asking more of the question of why would you want to enter the traditional banking system when you guys, by virtue of your existence, you don't care about Goldman Sachs or
it could be like a DeFi contract or something. We have no idea what the future could look like, right?
And are those big banks moving quick enough? As Goldman and Morgan Stanley, do those guys have the capacity? Are they moving quick enough to adapt to the environment right now?
Probably not. Right. And I think that's very typical. I mean, it's like, oh, what are the big banks going to do about this? It's like, well, what did Walmart do about Amazon? Like, they just die. That's how it works. Like, companies actually have the bigger they are, the less they're able to adapt. It's just how it is.
They can't even get back to the office. They can't
which is a wonderful thing, actually.
Yeah.
We need a hard reset on some of this shit,
right.
Yeah, we need a hard, like Bitcoin is the great reset.
Right. Roger.
So just to that point, just one quick question. What, like, Bitcoin versus Ethereum versus Dogecoin, for example, like what is this others? What is it different, or is it mined the same way? And, at some point there's got to be a sales pitch why Bitcoin's the one to get versus those. And what would that be?
I mean, we could discuss this in a number of different ways. Like the issue with Dogecoin, although guilty of making a bunch of money off it once Elon started talking about it, but it's largely a derelict project. It's proof of work, similar to Bitcoin, and it's decentralized in the way that it has no sort of company that's running it, which is actually a good thing. Problem is the code is very old. I was extremely nervous the entire network was going to crash when it started getting billions of dollars in transactions. It's based off of like a 2013 fork of Litecoin, I want to say. So that's some old tech in there, but it stood up to its credit. So Dogecoin is a little different in the sense it has a inflation rate of 5 billion Doge per year that never changes. So it's not truly finite. And I think the people who are involved with it now, namely Elon, don't really understand what the importance of a strong base layer system is. So if you want to try, like Ethereum has the kind of opposite problem where it's like it's extremely underlict. There's a lot of hands in sort of a lot of chiefs and running this thing. They change how it runs constantly. They're changing the inflation rate down. They're removing POW. I mean, this is not the type of stability you want when you're considering a currency for your country. No one's going to let those technocrats ETH is never going to be the currency in Brazil. There's like 5 guys who are kind of like controlling that. Doesn't make sense. Bitcoin, however, is like completely decentralized. It is by far the most secure. So in a base layer, so if you think of the base layer of our current monetary system, all it is, central bank prints money. They say, yes, this is money. You can hand it to somebody. Just hand it. Everything else is layers built upon that system, right? So your credit cards, Interac, all that stuff, these are all services built on other layers. So when Bitcoin is concerned about being absolutely secure, you can send it from one place to another without question. It is going to get there. No one can stop it. No one can censor it. That's what's most important. I don't care how quick that is. So when you have other layers on top of that, like Lightning Network, where it sort of aggregates transactions and reconciles them together to save fees, so it's cheaper. I mean, you don't really care that your cup of coffee is on an immutable ledger in the same way you would your house or your car. So the major aha moment for me was basically that, like, the base layer needs to be robust as possible. It needs to be what's defending the currency from everything in a hostile environment. Bitcoin is the only one that can stand up and has been proven to stand up to all kinds of threats, internal, external, and otherwise. But once something is truly decentralized and not run by a company, there's no vector for attack. Now, something happens to Vitalik, he gets compromised, he gets kidnapped. I mean, what happens to Ethereum? I have no idea. There's nothing can be said about that Bitcoin. The way to run a node. So network is supported by nodes. You can run a Bitcoin node on a Raspberry Pi. You want to run an Ethereum node, you need probably a $12,000 computer. You want to run a Doge node, you need, 500 gigabytes of space, because they do their block times every minute. So you can imagine their blockchain grows 10 times as fast as Bitcoin. And so that becomes unmanageable over time. So it's built for being literally invincible is essentially it.
Well, I mean, that's an incredible answer. And I mean, just its value, trading at $60,000 plus for one is pretty intimidating to people. I mean, you have 17 and you're a millionaire. So you have 17 coins, and just wrapping your head around that. And I wonder, like in El Salvador, is it just fractionals or is there names for small parts of one Bitcoin?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the smallest increment presently is called a Satoshi. So I think that's 100 million. It's basically 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin. And it's about 1,500 Satoshis to $1 right now. So, if you're in the space long enough, you don't really think about the price, although the price is fun, but you think about the dollar collapsing to 1 Satoshi over time.
Yeah. Wow.
$1, 1 Satoshi is kind of a meme. But yeah, don't let the price intimidate you. That's called unit bias. It does not matter. It does not matter. You can get as many small pieces of that as you want. They have high value. It's like getting a whole bunch of Dogecoins might feel like you have something more, but
no, I hear you.
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff, man. Thank you so much. I know we're taking every time. I could.
Have fun, guys. This is great.
And Colin, and Roger, I know you got something too, but Colin, just like, how does the average person that, can't even comprehend anything that you've talked about tonight, how does the world move forward? If you're saying it's moving quick and maybe 4 or 5 years, things look tremendously different, is there going to be a whole bunch of people that don't know what to do about day-to-day life, or is it not as harsh as I'm picturing it to be?
Well, the thing is, like how much do most people, how much do you know about the inner workings of our actual monetary system, right? Like that was covered in a macroeconomics class in my MBA. I had a million questions for them. That is not covered at elementary level stuff. So most people operate within a system they don't understand constantly. the more you understanding Bitcoin is important for you getting in relative. This is still early. I mean, I always say, as long as they're still accepting dollars, it's not too late. But you're like, I mean, I would always start the Satoshi white paper. It's not very long. It's a very simple explanation of what's going on there. It's written for a world that nothing like this ever existed before. And so I highly recommend that. I mean, it's so wide and deep, the way money connects to everything in the world. And there's many analogies to be drawn throughout history with different types of money, different types of currency, and sort of barter, etc. So it's too much to ask for everyone to understand exactly how this works. But I think at a high level, I mean, you're basically talking about the ability, instead of handing the money to someone, now the whole world is your someone. You can send it to literally anyone, including another wallet of yours, anywhere. That's base layer type stuff. So, it's, once you have it, you'll kind of see how it's just so much easier, so much freer to use, and why it's better. It is quite apparent. You got to kind of use it to understand that.
Got it. Roger, you want to take us out here? Colin, thank you for your time. And where can, Roger's going to have something, but where's the best place to follow your work? Is it on Twitter, or what's the best platform to learn about Mintgreen?
My company Mintgreen has at mintgreen.hq. And I am on Twitter, Colin_Sully on Twitter as well. We do have Instagram too. I think it's similar handles if you search us.
Sure.
But yeah, that's prime. We try to do all our press releases and stuff on Twitter. There's a huge sort of following on that space.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, man.
Again, thank you, Colin, for stepping up on here and joining us and enlightening all of us who are still in the infancy stage of understanding cryptocurrency. I appreciate that, my brother.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. This is a lot of fun. Thanks, Roger. Thanks, Pete. George, thanks for the invite. Maybe
Sure.
we'll do this again sometime.
100%, man.
And I want to thank all the listeners out there for chiming in and listening to this episode of $5 Buzz. If you have any questions, comments, ideas for new episodes or guests, or, don't forget to like us and hit subscribe on the YouTubes and the Apples and the Spotifys, and email us at $5buzz. That's FIVEDOLLARBUZZ@gmail.com. And we will get back to you as soon as we're done getting all of our money together, making sure that we have those bills so that we can use them for undisclosed purposes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Raj.
See you guys. Thank you.
See you, man. Thanks.
God.